If you've ever felt like your mind won't stop, like your thoughts keep running even when you're exhausted, I want you to know something important. Your brain is not malfunctioning. It's following a survival pattern. And once you understand the neuroscience behind that pattern, you can finally loosen the grip that overthinking has on your life. So many people in my community, where I am helping people how to be happier, tell me I can't relax, or I can't switch off, or it feels like my brain is always 2 steps ahead, planning or worrying or analyzing. These aren't signs that there's something wrong with you. These are signs that your nervous system has become habitually conditioned to being on high alert. So it's not a personality trait, it's not a flaw, it's simply a loop, and a loop that your brain doesn't know how to exit. So today, I'm going to help you understand why this loop forms, how your brain unintentionally feeds it, and how you can interrupt it in ways that are gentle and that are also grounded in science. But to see the way out, we first need to understand what your brain is doing when it drags you into that spiral. So when you're stressed or you're overwhelmed or you're carrying more emotional weight than you're meant to carry, your brain shifts into what neuroscientists call a state of hypervigilance. So this is driven primarily by structures deep within the brain, especially the amygdala. And the amygdala's job is to constantly search for potential threats. So there's a purity in the intention of your amygdala because it wants to protect you. But the problem with it is that it can't see the difference between an actual physical danger and something in your mind, like uncertainty or social tension or emotional discomfort. So what it does is it simply detects intensity. And when it senses that intensity, it sends signals through your nervous system that say, stay alert, something might happen. So this state triggers your prefrontal cortex. That's the part of your brain responsible for planning and analyzing. And it starts working overtime. That's how the overthinking loop begins. So your brain starts predicting, rehearsing, maybe even catastrophizing. Not because you're weak, but because your biology is trying to prevent harm. So the more disconnected, the more tired, the more unsupported you feel, the more reactive your amygdala becomes. And it starts firing even when there is nothing wrong. And the prefrontal cortex, which is really trying to be your friend and be helpful, generates more and more thinking to solve a threat that doesn't even exist. So this loop doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. What it means is that your nervous system has forgotten what safety feels like. And while understanding this can feel comforting, there's still one habit that keeps this loop spinning far longer than it needs to. And most people don't even realize they're doing it. So the mistake is that we try to think our way out of overthinking. So from a neurological perspective, this makes perfect sense. The prefrontal cortex believes that if it can just gather enough information, it can resolve the situation and it can make the amygdala stop sounding that alarm. So you analyze, you plan, you rehearse conversations, you worry about outcomes, you review the past, you imagine future scenarios. Your brain is trying, genuinely trying to keep you safe. But to the amygdala, all of this mental activity looks like evidence of danger. So it interprets your intense thinking as a sign that something must be wrong. And so the loop tightens. And the more you think, the more threatened your brain feels. And the more threatened it feels, the more thinking it generates. So you're not trying to solve a problem, you're trying to feel safe. But what you have to understand is that thinking is not the doorway out of the loop because it's the very thing that tells your brain to stay in the loop. So there's another way, and it starts with something surprisingly simple. Simple enough that your brain will actually trust it. So the first step is to quiet your mind. It's to calm your nervous system. And your thoughts can only settle when your body feels safe. So underneath your conscious awareness, your vagus nerve, I've taught about this a lot because it's such an important thing to understand, is constantly communicating with your brain about the state of your body. So when your breath is short, or your shoulders are tense, or your posture is collapsed, then your vagus nerve reports back to your brain that there's danger. And when it does, your brain keeps the overthinking loop alive. But when you gently shift your body, even in the smallest ways, your vagus nerve reports something different. It's suddenly saying, we're okay, we can soften now. So you might stand up, you might release the tension in your jaw or in your shoulders. You might take a slow, steady exhale. You might place a hand on your heart or place a hand on your stomach. These are tiny actions, but they create big changes in your physiology. They lower your cortisol, they quieten your amygdala, and they allow your prefrontal cortex to come back online in a more balanced way. And as your body settles, your thoughts naturally begin to loosen and the loop becomes less sticky. And suddenly, what felt overwhelming begins to feel a little more spacious. But to truly understand your relationship with overthinking, there's another step. One that shifts you from being inside your thoughts to understanding them with clarity. So when your brain is spiraling, it's easy to believe the content of your thoughts. The brain is very convincing. Tells you that you're behind, that something might go wrong, that you need to prepare for every possible outcome. But your thoughts aren't the problem. The habitual pattern is. So this is where metacognition, which is your brain's ability to observe itself, becomes really powerful. So the moment you say, this is the overthinking loop, you activate a different network in your brain. So you move out of that habitual default mode network, so this place where your rumination happens, and into what is called the observer network. So you step out of emotional reactivity, you step into spacious awareness, and then the amygdala quietens. And the prefrontal cortex becomes less frantic. And you create this gentle buffer between yourself and your thoughts. Overthinking can't survive in that space. It literally relies on you believing the thoughts. So when you see the pattern, when you see the habit, the spell breaks. But there's still one more piece. A piece that helps your brain feel complete so that it no longer searches for something to solve. So overthinking always begins with a sense of incompleteness. So your brain is believing that there's an unresolved task. And this belief is rooted in the brain's prediction engine. It's constantly scanning for unfinished loops. So when you give your brain a task it can actually complete, your entire system relaxes. So you might ask yourself, what's one small thing I can do in this minute? This is called task orientation, and it's incredibly regulating, and it's really powerful in neuroscience. So it's shifting the brain from scanning into doing. So you might ask yourself, what am I sensing in my body right now? So that activates the insula. This is the part of your brain that's responsible for present moment awareness. Or you might ask, what's the kindest thing I can offer myself right now? That engages the prefrontal cortex in a self-soothing rather than self-protective way. So when the brain feels a sense of completion, even in something tiny, it no longer needs to spin, and it softens, it unwinds, it returns to presence. And now that you understand the loop and how your brain unintentionally sustains it, you might be wondering how to begin shifting these patterns more consistently in a way that supports your overall emotional well-being. One of the most important things is a meditation practice. It is super powerful, something that I found difficult to begin, but once I got into it, found it to be my superpower. I really encourage you to come and use the 10-Minute Mind. That is my program. It is used in over 70 colleges and universities worldwide. So many people use it daily, and they absolutely love it. And if you're curious about where your overthinking loop shows up more strongly, or what part of your emotional landscape needs the most support, I've created a free assessment that can help you understand your unique patterns. It's a quiz, just takes a few minutes, and it gives you a personal happiness profile that highlights your strengths, your blind spots, and the most powerful next step for you. You're going to find the link below. It's gentle, it's clear. It can open up a doorway to a very different relationship with your mind, one that feels grounded and kind and deeply human. I hope this has been helpful. Please like and subscribe so I can teach you more about how you can be happier. As always, be kind, take care, go gently in the world.